Welcome to the Liberated Feminine Podcast. I'm Lucy Lampy, your host. And in a recent episode, you might have heard me speak on the differences between the male brain and the female brain and how that affects our relationships. And this is kind of a part two to that, but also more specifically focused on how our brain is being actively rewired in our relationships. Because here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize about relationships. It's not just that your brain shapes how you love, what you're attracted to, what kind of person you have chemistry with, who you fall in love with, your attraction point, all of that. But also your relationship is actively rewiring your brain in real time. The way you show up, the roles you fall into, the patterns you repeat, all of it is training your nervous system. And over time, it becomes who you are in that relationship and who you are as a woman. Of course, that permeates into other relationships and other environments, right? So while we may hear things like women are more emotional and men are more logical, women are better at multitasking, men are wired for focus, just like we explored in that episode about the differences in our neuroscience, our neurobiology, that is true. But also remember that the brain is highly malleable. It is plastic. There's neuroplasticity that we can work with. And what happens is we build entire relationship dynamics on top of all of our already predisposed brain biology, right? But the deeper truth is a lot more alive than that. It's a lot more complex than that. And honestly, it's a lot more empowering. This is good news, y'all. This is good news. Your brain is not fixed. Your partner's brain is not fixed. It might seem that way sometimes, okay, but bear with me. Your relationship dynamic is not fixed. The brain literally organizes around what you consistently inhabit. Now, if there's one thing I want you to leave this episode with, it's that. Remember that. Literally that line right there. Your brain, or the brain, organizes around what you consistently inhabit. And think about the implications of that. This is bigger than your relationship even. This is, what are you consistently practicing? How are you consistently choosing to look at your life, to look at your world? Are you looking through the lens of possibility, curiosity, and gratitude, or through the lens of gloom and doom and everything that's going wrong? You know, this is also your brain literally reorganizing itself to support what demand is placed on it. And so today I want to talk about more specifically the polarity between masculine and feminine energy and what's happening in the brain beneath all of this. Because once you see this, it changes how you relate to everything. Again, not just to your partner, but to everything. Okay, so let's get into it. Number one, let's start with the common narrative, right? Men have more white matter. Women have more gray matter. Now, this is biologically true, again, as I brought up in a previous episode. And we want to have awareness of this. So maybe this is our baseline as female brain and male brain individuals. And as a recap, white matter is associated with that super single focus, deep focus, linear processing kind of thinking, right? Gray matter is associated with emotional processing, big feeling, integration, and the relational awareness. So yes, those differences do exist on average at large between men and women. But here's the next piece, is that overlap is actually pretty massive. What does this mean? This means that there are men with highly integrative brains and there are women with highly focused brains. But more importantly, these structures are not fixed. This doesn't mean that you can drastically change. Well, maybe if you had to adapt to an environment that way. But basically, they change based on how you live. Now, part two to this is the part that matters the most here. The brain adapts to the roles you live in repeatedly. to the things that you are exposed to repeatedly, to the things that your brilliant brain and nervous system realize, we need to adapt to this. So if someone is constantly in focus mode, problem-solving mode, task completion mode, the brain strengthens those pathways. Where the neurons are constantly firing, that they're wiring. Okay, they're wiring together, and eventually this process called myelination happens, where something integrates there, and it's like I think it was 3,000 times more efficient, or something wild like that. All of a sudden, this is when you become proficient at something. You might notice after about what they say 20 hours of practice over time. Not all at once. I'm not talking about practicing a new skill for 20 hours straight, but that consistent practice, when it builds up to about 20 hours, that is around, on average, the point of being proficient, good enough at something. It's when it clicks. When you're learning how to throw the tennis, swing the tennis racket, and after that 20th hour, however many weeks that is of practice, something clicks, and your brain is like, I get it. Okay, so same thing happens when we are building new pleasure pathways. Same thing happens when we are practicing a new way of being, a new way of responding, a new way of relating. So your brain literally strengthens those pathways. It is brilliant like that. This is not gender. This is conditioning, not gender. This is conditioning. You don't just experience your relationship. Now, really get this. You don't just experience your relationship. You train your brain through it. Now, here's a real example. Fathers. We hear a lot about how mothers, we can hear every little noise throughout the night and it wakes us up, but the fathers will snore and sleep through everything. It's not quite true. I'm sure you know some fathers, maybe your partner as a father, who this is not true for at all. Like for me, with my partner, Brendan, he wakes up at the slightest noise with the baby. So yes, his brain scans for noises and external threats, like if there's a weird noise coming from outside or some unusual noise inside the house. My brain doesn't really pick up on that. So in classic female brain form, I'm not wired for that. I haven't practiced that. But he actually has that, and also is able to hear and pick up on the little noises when our baby is waking up in the middle of the night. And so it's been a little bit harder for him to sleep, even though I'm the one that actually has to nurse her at night. But anyway, here's the thing about this. When men become deeply involved caregivers, their brains actually start to change too. And I want to highlight this in this episode because I really don't think that men get nearly enough acknowledgement for this. There's not enough of a spotlight on this. Their hormones actually shift. Their testosterone often decreases slightly. Their oxytocin and prolactin increase. And their brain activity starts to resemble what we would typically associate with mothers. So there's more emotional attunement, more responsiveness, more relational awareness. And this doesn't make him more feminine, it makes him more integrated. It doesn't make him stuck in mother mode, it makes him more integrated. It makes him capable of accessing those traits when he needs to, and also still accessing his focus and hyperfixation on one single task when he needs to. So what does this tell us? It tells us that men are not limited to one way of being. Oh, I said it, but neither are women. Okay, we all literally adapt to the roles that we consistently live in. I'm going to keep saying that. So next part is, what does this mean for masculine and feminine energy? Okay, so let's zoom out for a moment. What we often call masculine energy, what we consider masculine energy, is really a pattern of focus, direction, purpose, containment, single-pointed attention. It's like shining a flashlight on one single thing at a time. And what we call feminine energy is really a pattern of openness, of deeper feeling, receptivity, sensitivity, multi-layered awareness, emotional, environmental tracking. It's like shining a big, not just a flashlight, but like a big a big ass lantern that just lights up the whole room. And you can see the depth and the breadth of what that room contains, not just what's in the corner with the flashlight. You follow? So the thing is that these traits are not owned by men or women. They are states. They are traits that we access. And your nervous system learns whichever ones you practice best. It learns best whichever ones you practice the most. Now, let's bring this into relationships, because this is where people really feel it, right? This is where you unmistakably feel it. When polarity collapses, it often looks like both people being in survival, both people being overwhelmed or reactive, or both trying to control or protect, especially self-protect. Or it can look like one person carrying all of the emotional weight while the other one stays disconnected and focused on one single task or on their own task. And so over time, attraction fades, not because polarity is gone, but because both people are stuck in patterns they are not consciously choosing. They're just repeating what their nervous system knows. And this is why, if you're stuck in a pattern that is really frustrating or painful or feels really fucking lonely to your heart, I want to assure you, look, this is not your fault. Okay, this is not your fault. You do not need to blame yourself. There is a difference between blaming ourselves for being in a kind of dynamic that we do not like versus taking self-responsibility and self-accountability. This is where we can see, okay, I see how I started to show up this way. I see how I have been showing up this way. And how it was not because I'm a bad person or a bad partner or I'm horrible at choosing partners. Just leave those narratives off to the side, honey. It's not going to serve you here. But when you're self-accountable and self-responsible, you take all of that as information, as data, and you use your new found sense of awareness and increased sovereignty, agency in choices, and you choose something that better aligns with who you want to be. Now, we'll get to that in a moment, like how you make the shift, what do you do because you become this person you don't want to be, etc. But first, let's move on with the episode here. Stay on track here, Lucy. Okay. All right. Where was I? Let me look back at my notes because a bitch can ramble. I know this about me. All right. So a lot of people think they're stuck in a dynamic. Here we go. Dynamics. But what's actually happening is they've just become very neurologically efficient at it. We can appreciate this about ourselves. I love that my brain became so neurologically efficient at making every single moment of the day count. Because 10 years ago, last time I had a baby, before our current baby, of course, but my son, he's now 10. So when he was a baby, I operated very differently. I was very much in the mompreneur hustle mode. And I love this about me. I became so efficient at every damn thing. So efficient. I look back and I'm like, damn, that bitch really, wow, she ate, she was on it. And I don't need to do that anymore. Not only that, but actually I'm choosing not to be that because I want to experience life differently. But I appreciate that I can access that if I needed to. If I was in a relationship where I needed to be more in that structured, more masculine, let's call it mode, then I could be. I know that I could be. My brain can adapt beautifully. So I love that. We want to appreciate these things about ourselves. And so really think about this. Like your brain in a dynamic has just learned this is how we do love. This is how we respond to conflict. This is what's familiar. right? So the longer you stay in it, the more automatic it becomes until and unless you consciously change it. Oh, and that is where the rubber hits the road. Okay. Now, a lot of people are trying to fix this by going more rigid, right? He needs to be more masculine, or I need to be more feminine. If only I could just make him be more masculine, then I could be more feminine. And that often turns into what? Performance. And performance kills intimacy. Even if both of you were on the same page of, okay, I'm going to be more masculine and you're going to be more feminine, but that's not what your nervous systems have practiced showing up in that relationship. So it feels fake. It feels forced. So what do we do? Well, this is about integration, right? Integration, ultimately. It's not becoming the same person. No, it's becoming wholly you, whole, as in WHOLE, right? Wholly you. This means that you can both feel and stay grounded. You can both lead and stay connected. You can open without losing yourself. You have access to all of those facets of you. And when both partners have access to both sides of the polarity, something really interesting and yummy happens. Polarity doesn't come from rigidity. It comes from chosen contrast. It comes from choosing to soften, choosing to take leadership. So he chooses to lead, for example, not because he has to, because it's the masculine thing to do, but because he's connected to his heart and he really fucking sees you and you're longing to be guided and to just melt into his arms. And maybe you choose to soften, not because you're supposed to, because that's the feminine thing to do, but because you feel so safe, you can't help it. Oh my God, when I'm in the presence of my man, when he came back from his trip recently, and the whole time that he was gone, I was, again, because I'm a flexible bitch, right? I was in my, okay, get shit done mode, make sure everyone's safe, everything's good, everything's closed up at night, all the things are turned off, things are unplugged that need to be unplugged, because we are in Latin America and electrical surges and shit like that is real. And I could do that. But as soon as he got home, oh my God, I'm telling you, that first hug, I just felt my whole body soften and melt into a puddle. And I was like, oh my God, I've been holding so much. And it doesn't feel like a burden when I'm holding so much. I just feel like, I got this, I'm a bad bitch. And then in his presence, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to be a bad bitch. Feels so good. Feels so good to have the option and the irresistible softening. So, my God, that kind of polarity feels so good. And the thing is that when you have, that charge and that tension, that aliveness, this is where we come full circle. Okay? Now remember, your relationship is shaping your brain. Your patterns are becoming your wiring. So whatever you're consistently practicing in love becomes your baseline. So the more you practice deep, real presence, emotional attunement, speaking your truth, connecting from your heart, opening your heart, the more your brain builds capacity for it. This is not performance. This is real. This is science, y'all. This is a neuroscience. But on the other hand, the more you practice control or avoidance or closing your heart or disconnecting, the more your brain reinforces that. So you're literally continuing to strengthen whatever it is that you continue practicing. So then the question is not, so much just what am I currently wired for, but rather, what am I repeatedly becoming? What am I reinforcing into my being? And I also want to touch on this piece of when you decide to make a shift. All right, this is, I I have entire courses and supplementary things that can actually help you through this, including my upcoming series, 3-part series, Wildly Secure. So if you want to learn more about the how, join me for that. Join me. Pay what you can, starting at $33. You have lifetime access to the replays. All right, I will say no more about that. The link is in the show notes. When you decide to make a shift, initially it is going to feel really strange. In my previous relationship, in my previous marriage, I remember the point where I decided I can't do this anymore. I can't just always be walking on eggshells, dependent on his mood. If I have a good day or a bad day depends on if he's in a good mood or a bad mood. I can't do that. I cannot. So I decided that my goal would be to find peace, to find the peace and to find the joy, the glimmers, the good things in any and everything. And so I started to train my brain to look for evidence of the good, instead of just fixate on, the breadcrumbs of everything that was not going well. And I will tell you, it did take time. And I got a lot of pushback from him, especially in the first 6 months, where he was very skeptical. Like, what is this? Are you trying to manipulate me? Are you being nice because you want something? Or you're trying to be the better person? And I was just like, no, I just don't want the chaos. I don't want the constant chaos anymore. Now, you may have heard me speak on a previous episode about when we want peace, but we keep attracting chaos. You might want to check that one out too. But for me, this was a long time coming in my previous relationship that helped to set up my nervous system and my new baseline to recognize a relationship that could be truly secure and rooted in peace, instead of mistaking chaos for chemistry. This was a big part. Rewiring my nervous system, reorienting it, was a big part of coming into the relationship that I'm in now, where even when we don't agree on things, we still are kind and respectful. I don't have to be the vile bitch backed into a corner defending herself at any cost. I have no need to be that person with this man. And I did not believe some years ago that this could even be possible. So I will say that when you decide that you want to be different, not that you're changing who you are, but that you're going to become a more integrated individual. Okay, that you want to access more of the parts of you that can be at peace, that can respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting from a wound that's been, been poured salt over. Oof, yeah. So this is a process. And I will say that every single micro action, micro choice, micro experience that you have that will reinforce your new way of being, your new way of seeing, abso-fucking-lutely counts. So if you're at the beginning stages of this, making this shift, I highly encourage you to keep a journal, keep a literal written out that you can look at with your eyeballs list that you write every day, every single day for just a few minutes of everything that went right that day. Of everything beyond what you're grateful for. Write that too, yes, but what went right? Let your brain find more of the evidence of the beautiful things in your life and start to reorient your expectation of that becoming more and bigger and brighter in your life. Okay, now ultimately, because your brain is always listening to your life, it's always adapting to how you show up, which means, again, you're not stuck in the dynamic you're in. But if you're waiting for the other person to change first, then you might stay stuck for a very long time, honey. So we want to experiment a little bit, see what changes when you show up different, okay? And you're not stuck. You're not stuck. You're not stuck. You're just practicing what you've been practicing. And anything you can practice, you can repattern. Well, as always, thank you for tuning in to this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And of course, join me for Wildly Secure if you want to go deeper into this part of your journey. And as always, thank you for listening. And here is to liberating your wild feminine heart.
I be the best. I'm your little porn star. You bring the boom, I bring the bass. Give me a taste, they me the waste. I'm your little plaything. I got the feel.